In this video I'm going to show you how I made this 4 stacks completely by hand. That means no power hammer, no press, no grinder. Let's go! Before I heat up the billet, I start out by placing a mark roughly 35 to 40 millimeters from the back of the billet. Once the billet is hot, it's time to start punching the eye of the axe. I am very careful in the beginning, making sure that the eye punch is relatively straight before I apply more force. The idea is that I want the punch to go about 3/4 of the way through before I flip it over and start working from the other side. You might notice that I am turning the billet after each blow. This is to prevent my inaccuracy of holding the tool straight to mess up the straightness of the hole. If I turn it each or every other hit, my inaccuracy evens itself out. It's now time to flip the billet and start working from the other side. It's important to pay careful attention so that both holes are in line with each other. When punching the eye, we are pushing material down, and then when we flip it, we are pushing it back the other way. The idea is that the small piece of material will loosen and fall out, but sometimes it just barely hangs on inside the eye. In this case, it was very simple to solve. I just pushed it out with a thin piece of steel. Now that the initial eye is in place, it's time to start shaping and enlarging the eye, and we do this by using axe eye drifts. It's now time to start forging the lugs of the axe. This is usually done by drifting and then using the peen section of the cross peen hammer to move the material in the desired direction. Remember to always work from the middle of the piece and towards the larger part of the drift, otherwise you can risk distorting the eye and get your drift stuck. This process might feel like an eternity at first, but just give it a few heats. As the lugs thins out, it will move much easier. When I am happy with the length of the lugs, I flip it over and start working from the top side of the axe. But this time, I do not use the peen of the hammer. I instead use the flat side and just thin everything out that way. I always try to forge the eye section to about 90% done before I even touch the blade of the axe. The last 10% I save for the final stages of forging after the blade is completed. So we're at the stage now where I'm very happy with the eye section. We got some nice long fullers on the bottom, but we do have some fullers on the top as well. And you can leave it just like this and it will be perfectly fine, a beautiful axe. But I want to get them removed. And we're going to do that by hot rasping. It's now time to make a set down, and the set down will act as a transition point from the eye to the blade of the axe. It's now time to start forging out the blade and shape it to our preform. I usually start by spreading the blade with the peen section of my hammer. It's important to never lose track of the design, so don't forget to forge the profile of the axe. You can see me using the edges of the anvil to true up the blade profile. One of the downsides of working in a gas forge is that it's much harder to only heat up a certain section of the axe. However, since this is mild steel, I can cool the neck and the eye of the axe without it cracking. It's now time to split the blade to make room for the high carbon steel edge. I usually do this with an angle grinder, but since we're doing it all without power tools, I'm using a chisel to slowly but surely open up the blade. I usually refer to this method as the taco weld, since it almost looks like a taco. Before I insert the bit for the edge, I close up the taco so that I can thin it out some more. This will make the forge welding much easier. It's now time to prepare the high carbon steel bit. The idea is that I want it to be wedged shape. Therefore, I start by bending it and then I thin out the inside of the bend. This way it will come out relatively straight and prevent it from bending the wrong direction, almost like a banana. When the bit is completed, it's time to insert it into the body. I first heat up the body and place the bit inside the taco, and then I use my vise and my hammer to close it up. I then apply flux and let it heat up to a bright yellow color before I squish the materials together. I do this several times to make sure that the weld is true and strong. Once the blade is welded, I move on to cutting off the excess material with my chisel. I then continue shaping and thinning out the blade to my desired thickness. Once I am happy with the blade, I go back once more to the eye section to make sure that everything is straight and true to my design.
Okay, so we're at the stage now where the axe is completely forged and almost ready for heat treatment. But before we do that, we need to establish the rough edge, and I also want to go over the profile just a little bit.
When grinding the edge, I try to establish a rough apple seed edge about 1 mm thick. It's much easier to do this now before the blade is hard. If all goes well, the axe will most likely outlive me, so it's important to stamp it with my maker's mark so that the future owner knows who made it and where it's from. Before I heat treat the axe, I heat it up again to normalize it. You can think of this as a spa treatment for the blade. It's now time to harden the blade, and I do so by slowly heating it up and then I quench it in water. Remember that different steels have different hardening methods, so make sure to look up how to heat treat your steel. After the quench, I use some sandpaper on the edge so I can see the shiny steel, and then I put the neck of the axe inside the forge. I then pay careful attention to the shifting colors of the steel. When the steel turns straw color, I quench it in water once again. After the heat treatment, I use my Japanese rock weld files to test the hardness of the blade. The strength of a blade is the balance between hardness and toughness, and depending on the usage of the tool, one of these are usually the priority. I do the final sharpening with my file and some sandpaper. I do this until I can feel the burr on the edge. I then strop the blade on a piece of leather with some polishing compound.
Alright, so we completed the head and it's now time to seat it on the axe handle. And I still recommend that you buy a store-bought handle. Just like when you're trying to learn guitar or electric bass, it's important to learn the fundamentals, and you usually do that by established songs or listening to classical composers. It's the same thing here. You don't want to reinvent the wheel in the beginning. Learn the fundamentals, and then you can move on to implementing your own style and design. And I promise we are going to look into how to make your own axe handle in a future video.
I begin the hanging process by driving the handle through the eye of the axe. I can then see on the wood where the head was in contact with the handle. I then remove the material in those spots, and I keep doing this until the head sits in a position of my liking and I have contact all around the handle. I cut a slot in the handle for the wooden wedge to sit in. I prefer to use wood glue for my wedges, but I have heard decent arguments for using oil instead. You usually get a wedge if you buy a handle, but we're going to look into making wedges in detail in a future video. When the head is permanently in place, I shape the handle with my file and then I apply a mix of pine tar, turpentine and linseed oil to protect and, in my opinion, make the handle more beautiful.
Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. So in today's video we made this forest axe, and I'm also giving it away, so make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment and I'll pick one out at random. So this axe, my goal with this video was to introduce 2 new techniques in forging axes, and those were the lugs and the forge welded blade. Now obviously you can do the lugs without forge welding the blade, but I just thought it was a good video to introduce both those techniques in. So I really hope that it was somewhat educational. It was for me, at least, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm going to make more videos like this. I actually have a few planned out, introducing new techniques into axe forging, which I hope that you guys will join me for. I also wanted to let you guys know that we now have the membership option available on our YouTube channel. So if you feel like you want to support the channel, that is now available. Now remember, this is completely optional. All of these videos will still be available for free here on YouTube, but if you want to give a little kickback, that would be very much appreciated. But still, please, it's if you don't have the funds for it, please don't give me any money, only if you really want to. So don't feel obligated to do that or anything. I will still make all of these videos for free. Okay, we are going to have some, live streams, and I'm also looking into setting up some kind of a forum where we can talk to each other and discuss axes and stuff like that. It will probably be pretty fun, I guess. Thank you so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys. See you in the next one. Bye.